Deciding what to do with a house in the midst of a divorce is one of the toughest hurdles in an already challenging situation, especially with one person has already checked out. So what can you do if you are the person who stayed in the house and you can't keep the house? Joining me to talk about this is Jenn3PPDR, who is a real estate divorce specialist. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Paula.
So Jen, what can they do if they cannot stay in the house?
Well, it's very important for them to decide, how much they can afford. And if they decide that they can't afford the house and they need to go somewhere else, then I can help them find something that is more manageable. But in working with their attorney, this helps me decide what they actually can afford.
When people approach you, usually and they're in this situation, what do you do?
Usually I try to assess what their situation is, and in speaking with their attorneys, both sides, they let me know what's more realistic. And a lot of times the spouse who has the children wants to maintain a certain lifestyle. Well, that might not be possible. So we try to make a suitable living arrangement for both parties.
And you're also part of the divorce resource.
Yes, I am.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because if you have someone that's coming to you in this situation, but they don't want to leave the house because they say, well, why should I leave the house if it's not my fault? What do you recommend that they do?
Well, first of all, they should talk to a certified divorce financial advisor, and they are able to assess, how much money is really there and what realistically they can afford. And now you have 2 residences where they're going to have to maintain, a certain amount of bedrooms for each child. So realistically, instead of looking at 1 home, now we're looking at 2.
And what if they don't know if they can afford the house? Like when they approach you and say, Jen, I don't know, can I keep my house?
Well, I would come in and give them a market value for their home, and then it would go to their attorney to decide whether they divide the assets and, if they can afford to keep the home and another residence, or if they need to downsize.
And is it a long process, or people usually when they approach you and they come to you, they already have their mind set that this is what they want to do?
Well, it is a learning curve every time, and every situation is different, and sometimes they're a little more motivated than other times. So each instance is, a case-by-case basis.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining me today, Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you would like to learn more about what to do if you can't keep the house or have a question for Jen, just log on to my website at parentalogywithpaula.com and send me an email.
When going through a divorce, selling your house is not an easy task.
That's why you need a real estate divorce specialist.
Jenn3PPDR can be your go-between.
You won't have to do the back and forth between attorneys for the real estate. Jen will act in your behalf.
Jen has been considered an expert for court testimony.
Sometimes in a divorce, property can be one of the biggest issues. Let Jen be your expert.
JENNSOLDIT.com. JenSoldIt.com.